So I want to talk to you about an old children's game. It's probably existed in one form or another in every culture that has ever been, but we know it as Simon Says. And I know that Amy and Dawn have been playing some Simon Says with the people who have been, the kids that have been joining them for some of their Zoom programming, and that it's a popular one. So if there's anybody that's never played Simon Says, this is how it goes. So Simon Says, you have to, when the words Simon Says are said, then you have to do whatever that is. But if the words Simon Says do not precede the command, then you don't have to do it. And of course, the whole point of the game is to trip people up and to get them to do things that Simon did not say. So what I propose we do this morning, because this will become clearer later in the service, is we play a few rounds of Simon Says. And because you're all watching from home and nobody can see you, you get to play along too. And if you're here at worship with somebody else in your household, you can keep track of whether or not they got tripped up or not. So let's play a couple of rounds of Simon Says. So Simon Says, plug your ears. Simon Says, touch your nose. Simon Says, pat the top of your head. Simon Says, cover your eyes. Simon Says, cover your mouth. Stop covering your mouth. I didn't catch Anderson or Dawn. Haha, they're still with me. All right, that was round one. Okay. Simon Says, do this with your nose. Simon Says, chew on your finger. Simon Says, put one finger in your ear. Simon Says, tap the top of your chin. Stop tapping the top of your chin. I'm going to see how long Anderson and Dawn keep tapping the top of their chin. Okay, Simon Says, stop tapping your chin. Well, it's a lot of fun, and it's especially fun to play on Zoom because then you can see who's actually out of the game and who's not. But when you think about it, Simon Says is a great game for times like this, because what all of us want, we just want just a little bit of control. We want to just have things go the way that we want them to. We want to be able to just give a command and have it happen. And part of the reason that kids have always loved Simon Says is that you take turns. Sometimes you get to be the boss and the one that's thinking up the things. And I would just realize that I was running out of things to do. So, you know, it was probably time to move it on and let Anderson or Dawn or somebody else do the Simon Says. But we'd like just a little bit of control. We'd like to have things be predictable, and sometimes we like to have other people do the things that we want them to do. And that is so very natural. And in fact, it's quite a lot of fun because in some ways, it's just a form of leadership. So Simon Says is just being a leader. And even though you're trying to trick people a little bit and it's a game, it's good to take turns being the leader. And in Unitarian Universalism, one of the things that we value the most is that we share and we take turns being the leader. And the other thing that's really great is that we can be silly and we can laugh together. And even when we mess up the game, there's always another round to play. We always get to try it again. So thanks for playing Simon Says with me. And if you stay for the rest of the service, you'll kind of see how it fits in, because I'll give you a hint. God is going to play a big old game of Simon Says with the ancient Israelites. Thanks for joining me. Our reading this morning is a bit of a strange one. We're continuing with the Exodus story this morning. And let me kind of catch you up for anybody who missed the first couple that Anderson and I did. So here's what's going on. We're in the book of Exodus, which is some of the oldest writing in the Bible. And we probably all remember how the story gets started. The ancient Israelites have been enslaved in Egypt, and they've been there for a long time. And in fact, they were there long enough to kind of get comfortable with it, even though they didn't have their freedom. Well, finally, Moses and God get tired of this, and they go to Pharaoh and they say, hey, we're out of here. And Pharaoh says, no way. I'm getting way too much done with you guys. You guys are stuck here. We are not letting you go. And so God says, well, Pharaoh, you asked for it. And then along come the plagues, and there are these terrible plagues. And then Moses gets everybody ready, and they leave in the middle of the night, and they go over to the Red Sea. And God parts the Red Sea, and they walk through the Red Sea, and then the Red Sea closes up again. So they're safe, right? End of story. They're out of the bad place. They're onto something different. Not exactly. So what the story tells us is that they've got a long, long time to wander in the wilderness. And so as we remember in the second part of our series, in the first part of our series, the first thing they start doing is they start complaining. They are not out of Egypt 1 week before they're complaining. They say to God and Moses, you know, you brought us out here, you're gonna kill us, we're gonna starve to death, this is awful. So God figures out a way how to feed them, and Moses leads them on. Well, then Moses decides he's going to have a chat with God and goes up on a mountain, and the people get impatient again, and they say, wait a second, we need a better God. And so they melt down their jewelry and they form the golden calf and they start to worship it. Well, Moses comes back and is mad as he can be, and he gets rid of that golden calf right away. Well, in this third part of the story, the weeks are turning into months, and the months will soon turn into years. And the people we know are going to have some trouble putting up with this. We know that they were okay with the first part of the pandemic. They could stay in their homes, they could socially distance, they could go to the grocery store once or twice a week, but that's not going to last for the long haul. And in fact, the longer this wilderness experience goes on for them, the harder it's going to be. So God has yet another trick up her sleeve. And so I want to read our reading this morning, and you can see if you see where I'm going with this. So essentially, God is giving the ancient Israelites such an elaborate task to do that it's going to distract them from their woes. This is the story about what Moses tells the people that God wants them to do in order to be able to take the tabernacle, the temple, with them where they go. This is Exodus 35, 10 through 26. Moses spoke to the entire community of Israel, saying, "Come, all of you who have skills, come and make everything that God has commanded. The dwelling with its tent and cover, its hooks, frames, crossbars, posts, and base, the chest with its poles, the atonement cover and veiled curtain, the table with its poles and implements and the bread of the presence, the lampstand for giving light with its furnishings and lamps and the oil for lighting, the altar of incense with its poles, the anointing oil, the fragrant incense, the screen for the door at the entrance of the dwelling, the altar of the whole burnt offerings, and its bronze grate and poles and all its implements, the wash basin and its base, the tapestry hangings for the courtyard and the poles and the bases, the screen for the courtyard gate, the peg for the dwellings, the pegs for the courtyard with their cords, the official vestments for ministering in the holy place, the sacred vestments for Aaron, the priest, and his sons serving as priests." And then Moses goes on. The story says, "So everyone in the community of Israel left the presence of Moses. Then they came back, everyone whose heart was roused, whose spirit was freely responsive, bringing offerings to God for the building of the tent of meeting, furnishing it for worship, and making the holy vestments. They came, both men and women, all the willing spirits among them, offering brooches and earrings, necklaces and rings, anything made of gold, offering up their gold jewelry to God. And anyone who had blue, purple, and scarlet fabrics, fine linens, goat's hair, and tanned leather brought them. Everyone who wanted to offer up silver or bronze as a gift to God brought it. All the women skilled at weaving brought their weavings of blue and purple and scarlet fabric, and their fine linens. And all the women who were gifted in spinning spun the goat's hair. So if you read Exodus, it goes on and on and on in very minute detail. You would be amazed at how much is in that book that has nothing to do with this wandering in the wilderness, but it's a very, very detailed list of things that are to be done so that the Ark of the Covenant can be moved from place to place. Essentially, what God has done is God said, all right, we can't be in Jerusalem with the temple, and we're not in Egypt anymore where we had, our own basic version of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something that we can take with us wherever we go. Now, believe it or not, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, the Mennonites have built an exact replica of this tabernacle, this mobile tent where the Ark of the Covenant was. And so I was visiting down there, and my friend Stephanie May, who's the UU minister in Wayland, was with me. And we decided one day that we were going to go see this tabernacle. It's built by the Mennonites, and it's in a building that was built just to hold it. And it's this amazing thing. So you go in and you pay a little bit of money, and you go in this big room, and there, exactly as it was said it should be built in the Bible, is this fancy tent with a copy of the Ark of the Covenant in it. And you can walk around it, and there are explanations of it, and there are even mannequins that are dressed as the different participants. And every single detail is brought to bear on this replica. The cloth and the priest's garments are exactly as they should be. You can hold the Bible in one hand and read the passages and see exactly how the table is set. And so it was this amazing thing that somebody decided to go to all of that trouble to reproduce the tabernacle right there in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. You can Google it and look it up later today if you're curious. But what I think is going on is I think that God is having a big game of Simon Says with the ancient Israelites. He has already seen that they are pretty quick to complain, they're pretty quick to give up, and that they need some encouragement. And so what he does is he gives them a long list of things that they need to do. And he tells Moses and Aaron, he says, get them to do this and it'll work out fine. And that got me to thinking. It got me to thinking about the year that we have ahead of us. Because we're about 4 months or so into this pandemic. We have not been in the First Parish Meeting House since mid-March. And kind of like those ancient Israelites, we left in a hurry. We were doing church in person just fine 1 week. If you remember it, it was our celebration Sunday. It was the kickoff of the annual pledge campaign. And the very next week, we were doing online worship and have been doing it that way since. So like those ancient Israelites, we had to leave in a hurry. And it meant that we couldn't really plan what we were taking. We couldn't figure it out. We just had to go. And we just had to get into the wilderness to see what it was even like. And what I know is that the most important thing that we are all going to do this next year is just hold our congregation together as a people, to just not lose anybody, to stay in touch with people, even though it's a little bit harder now, and to be faithful to our church, to show up on Sunday, and to be fed that way, and to find ways to feed it ourselves, to find ways to do social action work, to find ways to reach out to one another pastorally, and to find ways to support our church and to have it not stop its work. Because the truth is, we left the building, but First Parish in Concord never closed. In fact, in some ways, its work got even more important. Many, many people have reached out to one another, have sent notes to each other, have called each other, And it's our caring for one another that will help us through this time. I remember back in March or April, I don't know when it was, when Susan Frederick Gray, who's the president of the UUA, sent out an email and said to us that we probably shouldn't plan on meeting in person before May 2021. I know my heart sunk. I just couldn't imagine that it was going to take that long to get through this. And I hope it doesn't. But what I know is that we are going to be in the wilderness for a while. We're not just going back to church as usual at the end of the summer. We're not going to get to just see each other and pretend like this was just some bad dream that we had gotten through. This is in fact going to go on and on. And we're going to need each other this fall. We've got an election coming up. Winter is going to set in, and this pandemic is still here, and it's going to be here for quite a while. So I want us to be like those ancient Israelites. I want us to think of the detailed ways that we can keep ourselves connected with First Parish, to think about the things we could do down to the tiniest little things, who we're going to call, who we're going to write a note to, what social action group we're going to get involved in, how we are not going to let our church be forgotten, but in fact amplify its voice in these times. And that's what I want us to do. I'm going to close with something that's come from that old Exodus story. I don't know if you know it or not, but observant Jews to this day, around the time of the Passover, around the time that this story was supposed to have happened, they built a little tent outside their houses. It's called a sukkah. And it's supposed to just be temporary. It's supposed to be made of branches, and it's supposed to be put up in an afternoon and to be able to be disassembled quite easily. And it's to remind them of those years in the wilderness, when they needed to move from place to place, when they just had to take everything that they had with them and keep going. And during this period that the sukkah is up, folks will go out there and they'll eat a meal in it. They'll chat with family and friends in it. They'll spend the night in it. And it's to help them remember that they were seen through the wilderness, that the wilderness did not last forever, but that it changed them in remarkable ways. I have a question for you this morning. And the question simply is this: what resources do you already have to carry you through this wilderness of COVID-19? You'll see the question appear on your screen. I invite you to write an answer in the chat, and then I'll read some of those. What resources do you already have to carry you through this wilderness of COVID-19? All right, let's see what's here in the chat. Faith, my spouse, a Zoom account, very practical. Health, trust in Mother God, each other. Family and extended First Parish family, dear friends. Creativity, a caring neighborhood. Music, friends, books, guided meditations. My Goldens, those dogs, they're so important. Friends, nature, beauty. Able to connect with family and friends via Zoom. Inner strength, my family. My love of gardening and cooking for my family. A home, a job, and family. Patience, resilience, masks. Preparing for an Acton special town meeting. Chickens. My siblings around the world. Each other. Regular exercise. There are so many. Love and money. My good neighbors. New flower gardens to enjoy. There are way too many of these to read. I hope you go back and look at them in the chat sometime during the service. Our wonderful dog, good friends, seeing other people's pets via Zoom. We have a lot to carry us through this wilderness.